Hey, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. We're here in another conversation of Let's Talk Tourism, and now I have the pleasure of talking with Geoff. He is the general manager of the Deschutes Expo Center. So it's going to be very interesting to see what perspectives he has on tourism and how he manages this Expo Center and how this Expo Center, in a way, develops tourism and other topics that we're going to discuss. So, Geoff, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you as my guest. And to begin, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? How is it that you got into this field of managing the Expo Center and things of that nature, please?
Sure. Well, thank you, and excited to be talking to you today. I've had the opportunity to be here at Deschutes County Expo Center, or Deschutes County Fair Expo in Central Oregon for just about 4 years now. Prior to that, my background was in fair facility and festival management in California. I had a couple different facilities there, ranging from the San Francisco Bay Area and Southern California and in between. And prior to that, I was born in Tennessee, but kind of raised mostly in California and spent most of my career there. But excited to be here in Oregon and certainly in beautiful Central Oregon, where
Definitely.
and we have such world-class tourism and destinations that attract people from all over the world.
That is, I didn't ask you before we started that you actually worked around this field as a manager before. I wanted to ask you, what is the main difference that you notice when developing an event here in Central Oregon to where you were back then in San Francisco in the Bay Area? What's the main key differences that you notice?
Yeah, I mean the facility here is world-class. What they've developed as far as this facility is unique, and there's virtually nothing else like it in the country. There are other fairgrounds certainly, but very few, if any of them, are what Deschutes County and the residents of Deschutes County and the team here built 20 years ago. It's new. It was all master planned. It was built together, and it was purpose built to be able to hold large scale, both small and large scale events. And so, what we have here is a tremendous opportunity to do things. It was put here in a little bit of a smaller community, but one that drives that has a ton of destination tourism traffic coming to it, which gives it some unique opportunities and something that we're continuing to explore. What does that mean? How do we play a role in driving traffic to this market from other areas to come visit, but also making sure we're providing entertainment options to our local community as well as it continues to grow. And I think the biggest difference here is that it's a slightly smaller community, right, than San Francisco or LA, where you've got an abundance of entertainment options, more traditional entertainment options and activities, but you have a lot of competition as well. Here, we've got it's a different perspective, right? The entertainment options are what bring people into the market. It's the outdoors, it's the space, it's the Cascades, it's Smith Rock, it's the rivers. Those are the things that are unique, and we don't compete with those because we benefit from them. But how do we make sure that we align ourselves with bringing people into the market that makes sense, that can enjoy what the community has, what the region has, but also hopefully enjoy what we're able to produce here on site.
Definitely, man. That's a lot to unpack right there because you mentioned the difference with how this community or this region develops as tourism, and it's very different. A little bit more countryside, a little bit more, like you said, outdoors.
Right.
And I think the events that you guys have been doing, like rodeos, things of that nature, go along with what the region offers, because I assume in the Bay Area, it's different kind of entertainment, maybe big celebrities, things of that nature, or a little bit more modern, you can say, or kind of like that, contemporary, or I don't know how the style would be.
Yeah.
But it's a great point that you make. Huh?
Yeah, I think one of the things we do is we try to make sure we have a really diverse portfolio of activities on the property. We'll do about 400 unique events here a year, which means that we have an opportunity to do a lot of different things. We don't want to be just one thing. We do a lot. We have a phenomenal facility, and it's world-renowned for equestrian events. And we do a lot of horse shows, but that's not all we do, right? We have a specific focus on those, as well as Western-style events, rodeos, and those kind of things. but we're also able at the same time to do other events. It's not uncommon for us to host 7 events on a single day or more than 10 events on a weekend. So we're not sort of pigeonholed in just one particular thing, that we can do a high-end activity on the front side of the campus while we also have a high-end livestock or an equestrian event on the backside. So we really try to diversify what we do in the few time, and then what we're seeing more and more is larger events that are looking at this market or this facility, this market to come to, that are taking the entirety of the property, which kind of changes that trajectory. And we're in our mind, right? We're continuing to consider what's the purpose of the facility, and how do we make sure that we're being good stewards of this property to bring the right tourism, the right mix of diversity into the marketplace, so that we're continuing to grow and being a key asset, not a detractor. And we do that, right? Columbia River Circuit Finals, which we just had last weekend, brings cowboys in from all over the country.
Really? Okay. So it was important. It was an important event. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, those, they're coming here. They're staying in hotels. They're buying food because they're here for 3, 4, 5 days at a time. They're stalling their animals. They're visiting the local shops, and they're spending money in stimulating the economy, and staying in hotels and eating out, because they're traveling in trailers and RVs and that sort of stuff, and they'll go out and eat while they're here and enjoy what the area has to offer. And we're trying to get them to stay longer. Other events, for example, that we brought in, last year was our first experience to bring in Overland Expo, which is an event that's produced in 4 locations across the country now, but it brings in, it's adventure travel.
Really, I didn't know that.
And it's a really cool event, but it's those people that live off the grid in these high-end travel units, or who will go off the grid to enjoy what nature has to offer in a short period, with overland-based units. And it's really cool because there are a huge number of companies that are based right here in Central Oregon that are participant in that market, because it's part of who we are. So that opportunity to showcase that to both the local community as well as people coming from all over the Northwest. And I think our data shows they came from almost 20 unique states to visit that event. We can showcase not only what's being done worldwide, but especially kind of where we're world leaders here locally as well, and that's really neat.
That's amazing. I didn't know that this region was such an attraction, in itself. Huh?
Right.
Which, like you said, it spreads out into the local economy indirectly. And everybody benefits, and this community is also very helpful towards that, and they promote everybody's local businesses.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of world-class businesses that are based here, or started here, or have their fingers here in a lot of different areas, and we look at in that market, major markets, right? You have Hydro Flask, you've got you've got a lot of these companies that focus on the outdoor space, because it's what generally, a lot of us do in our off time when we're not sitting in an office. We're out playing in the community, and people turn that into their livelihood, which is really neat. And that's just one segment. It's like that in all a number of different segments, which is really neat for us, and that unique in that that's also a little bit of tourism as well. It's maybe not Nike, over the hill, where people are coming from around the world to go to the Nike headquarters, but in a similar sort of concept. People will come here for some of these those more smaller niche brands because they're based here. And that's just scratching the surface, right?
Definitely.
I'm sure we're not aware of half the stuff that exists, because there's probably some very purposeful products for, world-class climbing that we have at Smith Rock, world-class skiing at Mount Bachelor, etc. So,
even in Smith Rock, in the Sun River, they have high-end or hospitality, hospitality like the resort in itself.
Yeah.
That brings a lot of people in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a really good point. What do you think is... do you think there is anything necessary to adapt for the future of Central Oregon, even yourselves as a Expo Center? Do you think there's a few things that can be tweaked and improved?
I mean, the community's growing so fast. That's
definitely
that has pros and cons, and part of that is making sure that development is planned so that it that it works well for for the future. I think you can't stop. We can plan for it and adapt for it, but trying to stop it is difficult. I think that's something that we've done really well. But there are some areas where I think many years ago people would have never guessed that the region would be the size it is today. And as we plan for the future, right, is making sure we don't underestimate what that could look like, and making sure that we develop it in a way that we don't lose sight of what the importance of the region is, that we don't lose the beauty of Central Oregon, and just put houses on top of destinations or monuments, or create gridlock with traffic and those sorts of things. And part of that's going to probably mean some change to the way things were originally designed, because they just weren't designed to accommodate the amounts of people.
The capacity,
We're seeing that with the airport, right? They've got a huge expansion.
Really? Haven't seen that. I wasn't aware.
Yeah, that they're working on and that's because it's going to be a bigger marketplace, right? They need longer runways, and they need more terminals, or more gates, and a larger terminal to be able to accommodate more traffic. And that's good for the region. But it's a challenge. What does that mean? It's adapted, right? Part of that means more flights, larger planes, potentially, different impacts. We have to figure out how to adjust for that. We're the same way, and our the property here we have. We're partially developed. We have 340 acres currently, and we're acquiring a little bit more. It'll make us one of the largest facilities of our type in the world.
Really?
And we have to think we'll have to think about how we design that so that that we're planning for what the future, what the needs of the community are today, but also that we have the ability to expand for what's needed tomorrow, because it'll be different, whether we like it or not. It'll be something different.
Yes, and I assume that you guys are also trying to hopefully this term is very complex, sustainable. There's a lot of moving parts, especially when in an expo center like this. But environment being the most important, regarding how do you use and reuse and take advantage of of the resources,
Right.
and also for the growth of the community, the capacity load that it's going to have in the future. And that's very interesting. And I want to say, how do you manage? How do you decide?
Right.
What's the correct step? Because it's so difficult.
Right.
I understand that it's not as cookie cutter, but do you take examples of other expo centers around the world, or do you talk with experts? How does that come by?
Yeah, it's everything. We're just getting started on the process, and it'll be a long process to figure out what we're doing on our property alone. But it's those conversations that are going on throughout the community that we get the opportunity to be part of, and sometimes, and I think so our community does too. And when those are there, is to take advantage of them, because no one person has the ability to come up with the solution. Right, it takes everybody providing their input, because I can design what I want, but it may be vastly different than what you want as far as what this facility could be, a recreation, and could be very different than what one of our friends or neighbors might ultimately want. And it's making sure we hear all the different perspectives of what's there, so that we're not going and ultimately designing and building something that's purpose built for what I would like. It's not mine to do that with, and it's got to be something that the community wants as a whole. And I think that's what we'll focus on. So for us, and I think a lot of the projects that we're seeing, it's community driven. It's getting input from. And it's not just here in Redmond. It's getting input because tourism's a driver across the region. It's Bend, it's Lapine, it's Sun River, it's up into Terrebonne and Madras. It's out into Prineville, it's out into Sisters. And it's. I'm going to miss a city if I try to name them, but it's all of them.
So many,
have that input, and maybe it's a little bit more focused, or people in Redmond have a little bit more focus on it. But those outer regions should as well, because. Today it's easier to travel longer distances than it's ever been, and it will continue to get easier.
Definitely.
And so those folks are going to have the ability to probably attend more events or activities here, and making sure that what we're building is something that they're going to want as well. And getting that broadest scope of needs, and then we go to the experts that design and build these things, and say, okay, this is what we want. We need make it up, right, based on some of the initial assumptions. We need additional sports fields in the community, and where can we accommodate those on the property? We need additional performance spaces. We need additional indoor space. What do we need, and then how does this ultimately all design and master plan so that it's the facility of the future is we leave something for our next generation that the people before us built and did for us, which is something that's world class, and we all should be proud of, and making sure we continue that moving forward.
I wanted to ask you, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, this Expo Center wasn't here, huh? When it started. This wasn't the first
Correct. Yeah.
place, huh? It was somewhere else. I cannot recall.
Yeah.
But do you know a little bit about the story of just briefly of this location as well?
Yeah, a little bit. Certainly I'm not the historian or the person that knows, but we have some in the community that do, and that's great. And we need to make sure we get the information out of their heads, so we have it forever.
Exactly.
This is the second location that I'm aware of for the. As far as purpose-built facilities, right? The fair itself started a little over 100 years ago, and as fairs generally have, they kind of were bounced around at first, but then ultimately the initial or the location was where sort of Lowe's and Fred Meyer sits today. That was the old fairgrounds property.
Oh, really?
And it was sort of out on the edge of town, I believe, probably when they built it.
So right now it's downtown, huh?
Yeah, and suddenly with expansion, right, it grows and expands over the top of over the top of that area, and so suddenly you had a fairgrounds that was surrounded by businesses, by housing, and facilities that generate large amounts of visitorship are not great neighbors, and we understand that, right? Because we create traffic and we create noise and we create light, and sometimes we smell bad. When we're doing equestrian events,
yes, of course.
Or we did that. One of the things that they did really, really well is they brought this event out, or the facility, and they moved it sort of to the edge of town, and they put it next to some natural space, Bureau of Land Management land. They put us next to an airport, which is also not necessarily the best neighbor, right? Nobody wants to live next to the airport per se, and some industrial. So we're around corporate neighbors more so than we are residential neighbors, which insulates us and hopefully our community from those impacts, right?
Exactly.
The noise issues that you see when something grows around there, and that's a big one, or light issues and that sort of stuff. So they designed this facility and put it in a space that was, again, out on the edge of town, and we're seeing that growth again, right? I mean, you see it as Redmond just continues to expand. We're not immune from that. We're getting growth, but that growth is managed well here because a good example of the thought process, the planning that went into the development, you see, right? Putting this property, an event facility, next to the airport, next to BLM land, next to light industrial, so that you don't have those as many negative impacts long term. Now we're looking at transportation corridors and those sorts of things. And the other thing that's important that we don't talk about often is the importance of a facility like this also for emergency response. Is that we play a tremendous role there as well. If there's ever large forest fires, or when those occur, if there is ever earthquakes or natural disasters or man-made disasters, this is a facility from which the community, we stage equipment and needs, or we can house people on this property, and having it co-located next to the airport for ability of transportation of items in and out on the what makes Redmond such an important player in the marketplace, on the hub, right, of some of the major transportation corridors on this side of the region, give that unique ability to do a lot of things, including provide that emergency response. Not a bit of not necessarily tourism, but a different role as well.
Definitely, it's so multi-faceted that I did not I wasn't aware of that. Huh? But how many people can reside here? Or how many people can be put in? Maybe 10,000?
Probably more than that.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, in the case of a disaster, right, we have 340 acres plus BLM land, and it may not be what we're used to living, the conditions we're used to.
Yes.
But
We'll manage it.
humans adapt, right?
Yes.
And it becomes a place where we can provide those necessities. It's not about then having the opportunity. It's less worried about where do you charge your phone, and it's more about where do you get something to eat and drink and stay warm.
Exactly.
And those are the things that we can provide to probably, not every member of our community, but a large number. And it becomes just a part of that emergency response network. It's not, it's just one piece, but it can play an important piece. We saw that with the Lion's Head Beachy Creek fires a couple of years ago. Even as far away as those were. We're seeing, we played as the command center for that fire. We did some some housing for displaced residents and animals and those sorts of things. Because you don't want to put that right at the edge of that fire, just in case something changes. Or the disaster, right? It's got to be somewhat removed.
That's true. That's true.
And so it plays an important role. It's our highest and most important use, but it's what we never want to have to be used for.
That'll be the last resort, huh? Definitely. And I wanted to ask for the people that are watching this video, and maybe, who knows, who can definitely see with the power of the internet, words spread faster. What would you recommend to that person that is also in your position, but in another part of the world, possibly, to try to keep and manage and try your best to do the correct decisions, because like we said, it's so complex that how do you base your intuition? How do you do it?
I think it's knowing the community, it's spending the time getting to know it, is making those decisions, not necessarily in a bubble, but based on as much information as you can gather, and thinking about it in that lens of what does tomorrow need to be, because it changes. What we do today will be vastly different from what we do tomorrow in technology. We talked about the internet, that ability will change how we do things. But
Definitely.
One thing that won't change, in my opinion, and I think has sort of been proven, is the importance of humans to come together at some point, right? And even through the technology that exists, through texting, through video chat, through even things as unique as maybe looking out there in the future, that metaverse and stuff. There's something important about coming together as people and sitting across the table like
Definitely.
we do, and shaking hands and giving someone a hug, right? And maybe the technology gets there someday, but that's a long ways off. And just that ability to be a location for the community to come together is tremendously important, and I think it's an important role that we can play.
Definitely.
And also to bring people from all over the world together so that we can interact. And the internet gives us a great ability to do that, but it's always better when we can sit across the table and have that conversation, share a cup of tea or coffee or whatever, in this region, one of our micro brews, and have that first-hand conversation. It makes all of us better.
Exactly, man. That's a really good way to... and hopefully that's true. We are still human beings. It will require connection, like actual physical connection. So, Geoff, thank you for your time, brother. If people wanted to contact you, let's say wanted more information or possibly want to do an event, how would they connect with you? What's the ways?
Yeah, back to that technology, probably reach out to us, visit our website, DeschutesFair.com, or the longer one is expo.deschutes.org, and you can kind of learn a little bit more about our facility. There's a little bit about our history there, and a little bit about the size and scope of what we have to provide to the community, and all our contact info is there as well.
Perfect. So definitely reach out to the Deschutes County Expo Center if you plan on doing an event or just to learn how this place, like Geoff said, is one of the important examples in the world to its type of events. So hopefully have a great time, and it was insightful, and we'll see you on the next Let's Talk Tourism.